My name is Sarah, and I never imagined that cleaning out my late father's garage would change everything I thought I knew about my family. It was a sweltering August afternoon in Phoenix, Arizona, and I had been putting off this task for 3 months since Dad passed away from a heart attack at 72. The desert heat was relentless, even with the garage door wide open. Sweat dripped down my forehead as I sorted through decades of accumulated memories. Old Christmas decorations, my childhood bicycle with training wheels still attached, and countless boxes of tools that Dad had collected over the years. He was always the type of man who believed you could fix anything with the right tool and enough determination. I was about to take a break when I noticed something wedged behind his old workbench. It was a rusted coffee can, the kind that used to hold Folgers, pushed so far back that it was almost invisible. Dad had always been particular about his workspace, so finding something hidden like this struck me as unusual. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled the can free. The metal was cold despite the heat, and when I shook it, something rattled inside. I pried off the plastic lid with a screwdriver, and inside, wrapped in an old cloth, was a single brass key. It was ornate, with intricate engravings that looked almost antique. There was no label, no indication of what it might open. I stood there in the dusty garage, holding this mysterious key, when suddenly I remembered something. Dad had an old roll-top desk in his home office that he never let anyone touch. Whenever my brother Mike or I got too curious as kids, he would gently but firmly redirect us away from it. "That's Daddy's special desk," he would say with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Maybe when you're older." The desk had been in our family for as long as I could remember. It was beautiful, dark mahogany with dozens of small drawers and compartments. But there was one drawer that was always locked, and whenever I asked about it, Dad would change the subject. After Mom died 8 years ago, he became even more protective of that space. I drove straight to Dad's house, my heart pounding with anticipation and something else I couldn't quite name. The key felt warm in my palm, and I kept glancing at it during red lights, wondering what secrets it might unlock. The house felt different now, quieter, emptier, filled with the lingering scent of his cologne and the coffee he drank every morning at exactly 6 a.m. The office was exactly as he had left it. His reading glasses were still folded on top of a half-finished crossword puzzle. His favorite pen, a silver ballpoint he had owned for 20 years, lay next to a stack of unopened mail. But my attention was drawn immediately to the desk, and specifically to the small drawer on the upper right side that had always been locked. I approached slowly, almost reverently. The key slid into the lock, as if it had been waiting for this moment. With a soft click, the drawer opened, and I found myself staring at a manila envelope that looked like it had been there for years. My name was written across the front in Dad's careful handwriting. "For Sarah, when you're ready." Inside the envelope were 3 items that would change everything. A handwritten letter from Dad, a copy of a will I had never seen before, and a photograph of my mother holding a baby I didn't recognize. The baby had the same dark hair and green eyes that ran in our family, but it definitely wasn't me or my brother Mike. I sat down heavily in Dad's leather chair, the same one where he used to help me with homework every night after dinner. My hands were shaking as I unfolded the letter, written in his distinctive handwriting, the same handwriting that had signed birthday cards and school permission slips for years. "My dearest Sarah," the letter began, "if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you found the key I hid away all these years. I've been waiting for the right time to tell you this, but somehow the right time never came. You have a sister, sweetheart. Her name is Emma, and she's 3 years older than you." I stopped reading and looked again at the photograph. The baby in my mother's arms was smiling, reaching up toward the camera with tiny fingers. On the back, in Mom's handwriting, was written, "Emma, 6 months old, 1985. The letter continued, "Your mother and I made a decision when Emma was born that we've regretted every day since. We were young, scared, and thought we couldn't provide for her the way she deserved. We made the heartbreaking choice to give her up for adoption to a wonderful family named the Johnsons. They lived in Seattle then, and they promised to love her as their own." My chest felt tight, and I had to remind myself to breathe. I had a sister I had never known existed. All those years of being the only daughter. All those moments when I had wished for a sister to share secrets with. To have someone who understood what it was like to be the only girl in a family of boys. And she had been out there somewhere, living her own life. We followed her progress through letters and photographs for the first few years, Dad's letter continued. The Johnsons were wonderful about keeping us informed. Emma grew up to be beautiful and smart, just like you. She went to college, became a teacher, and married a good man named David. They have 2 children now, your nephews, Jacob and Matthew. I looked up from the letter, staring at the wall where Dad had hung his favorite photograph of our family at Christmas 3 years ago. We were all smiling, gathered around the tree, but now I realized someone was missing from that picture. Someone who should have been there. The will you'll find in this drawer is the real one, the letter continued. I had my lawyer draw it up 5 years ago, but I was too much of a coward to tell you and Mike about Emma. Half of everything, the house, the savings, the life insurance, it all belongs to her too. I know this is a shock, but she's your blood, Sarah. She's your sister, and she deserves to know about her family. At the bottom of the letter was an address in Seattle and a phone number. Emma Johnson Martinez, it read. If you can find it in your heart to forgive a foolish old man, please tell her about us. Tell her that not a day went by that we didn't think about her and wonder if she was happy. I sat in that chair for what felt like hours, reading and rereading the letter until I had memorized every word. The sun was setting outside, casting long shadows across the office, and I felt like I was sitting in a completely different world than the one I had woken up in that morning. The will was exactly as Dad had described. Everything was to be split equally between Mike, me, and Emma Johnson Martinez. But it wasn't about the money or the house. It was about the fact that somewhere in Seattle, there was a woman who had no idea that her birth parents had thought about her every single day for 38 years. I picked up the photograph again, studying my mother's face. She looked so young, maybe 22, and there was something in her expression that I had never seen before. A mixture of love and heartbreak that made my chest ache. She was looking down at Emma with such tenderness, but I could see the pain in her eyes. As I prepared to leave Dad's office, I noticed something else in the drawer. A small notebook filled with Dad's handwriting. The first page was dated 37 years ago, and it was addressed to Emma. It was a journal, I realized, filled with letters Dad had written to her over the years, but never sent. Letters about her first steps, her first day of school, her graduation, her wedding, all the milestones he had missed but had somehow known about. I closed the drawer carefully, locked it again, and put the key back in my pocket. Tomorrow, I would have to call Mike and tell him about Emma. Tomorrow, I would have to figure out how to reach out to a sister I had never known existed. Tomorrow, I would have to find the courage to honor Dad's final wish and reunite our family. But tonight, I sat in Dad's chair, holding the photograph of my mother and my sister, and I grieved for all the years we had lost, all the memories we should have shared, and all the love that had been waiting in a locked drawer for 15 years. I didn't sleep that night. I kept staring at the ceiling of my childhood bedroom, the one Dad had kept exactly as it was when I moved out for college 12 years ago. The glow-in-the-dark stars I had stuck up there when I was 10 were still faintly visible, and I found myself counting them like I used to do when I couldn't sleep as a kid. At 6 in the morning, I called Mike. My brother was never an early riser, but I knew he would be getting ready for his shift at the fire station. He answered on the third ring, his voice groggy but alert, the voice of someone trained to wake up quickly for emergencies. "Sarah, everything okay? You never call this early." "Mike, I need you to sit down. I found something in Dad's desk yesterday, and you're not going to believe this." I told him everything. The key, the letter, the photograph, the will. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and for a moment I thought the call had dropped. "Are you serious?" His voice had changed, become harder somehow. "We have a sister? And Dad never told us? I'm as shocked as you are." "But Mike, I saw the documents. I saw the pictures. This is real." Mike was quiet for another long moment. I could hear him breathing, could picture him running his hands through his hair, the way he always did when he was trying to process something difficult. "What do we do now?" "I think we need to call her. I think we need to honor Dad's wish and let her know about us." What if she doesn't want to know? What if she's happy with her life and doesn't want us disrupting it? I had been asking myself the same question all night. Then we respect that. But don't you think she deserves to know? Don't you think she deserves to make that choice for herself? Mike sighed. Yeah, you're right. Do you want me to come over? We should probably do this together. An hour later, Mike was sitting at Dad's kitchen table, reading the letter for the third time. He looked older somehow, like the weight of this secret had aged him overnight. We had always been close, just 2 years apart, and we had never kept secrets from each other. Learning that Dad had kept something this big from us felt like discovering we had been living in a different family than the one we thought we knew. I keep thinking about all the times I complained about being the only boy with 2 sisters, Mike said, looking up from the letter. And she was out there somewhere, probably wishing she had siblings too. I had made coffee, Dad's favorite blend that he ordered online from a small roastery in Colorado. The familiar smell filled the kitchen, and for a moment it felt like he might walk in and join us, like he had done every morning for as long as I could remember. I've been thinking about how to approach this, I said, pulling out my phone. We can't just call her out of the blue and drop this bombshell. Maybe we should write a letter first. Mike shook his head. I think Dad waited too long as it is. What if something happens to one of us? What if she moves? I think we need to call her today. I looked at the phone number written in Dad's careful handwriting. It was a Seattle area code, and I wondered what Emma's voice would sound like, whether she would sound like me or Mom. Would she have Dad's laugh? Would she bite her lip when she was nervous like I did? Okay, I said, taking a deep breath. Let's do this. I dialed the number, my hands trembling slightly. It rang twice before a woman answered. Hello? Her voice was warm, with just a hint of a Northwestern accent. She sounded rushed, like she was in the middle of something. Hi, is this Emma Johnson Martinez? Yes, this is Emma. Who's calling? I looked at Mike, who nodded encouragingly. Emma, my name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm calling from Phoenix, Arizona. This is going to sound strange, but I believe you might be my sister. There was complete silence on the other end of the line. I could hear background noise, children playing, maybe a television, but Emma didn't say anything for what felt like forever. I'm sorry, what did you say? I know this is shocking. I just found out myself yesterday. Our father, your birth father, passed away 3 months ago, and I found some documents that show you were born to our parents, Robert and Linda Mitchell, in 1985. Another long silence. When Emma finally spoke, her voice was much quieter. I need to sit down. Are you sure? I mean, how do you know? I have a copy of your birth certificate, photographs, and a letter from our father explaining everything. Emma, he thought about you every single day. He and our mother never stopped loving you or regretting the decision to give you up for adoption. I heard what sounded like a chair being pulled across the floor, and then Emma's voice, shaky now. I've been looking for my birth family for 10 years. I hired a private investigator 2 years ago, but he couldn't find anything. The adoption records were sealed, and the agency wouldn't give me any information. My heart was pounding so hard, I was sure she could hear it through the phone. You were looking for us? Ever since my adoptive parents died in a car accident 6 years ago. The Johnsons were wonderful parents, don't get me wrong, but I always wondered about my birth family. I always felt like there was something missing, you know? I did know. I had always felt like our family was incomplete somehow, though I had never been able to explain why. Emma, there's more. You have a brother too. His name is Mike, and he's here with me right now. A brother? Her voice cracked slightly. I have a brother and a sister? We've been hoping for a sister our whole lives, Mike said, leaning closer to the phone. Hi, Emma, I'm Mike. And then Emma started crying. I could hear her trying to control her breathing, could picture her wiping her eyes and probably looking around to make sure her children couldn't see her falling apart. I'm sorry, she managed to say. I can't believe this is real. I have siblings. I have a brother and a sister. You don't need to apologize, I said, my own voice thick with emotion. I've been crying on and off since yesterday. This is overwhelming for all of us. Tell me about our parents, she said. Tell me about our father. For the next hour, Mike and I told Emma everything we could think of. We told her about Dad's terrible jokes and his obsession with classic cars. We told her about Mom's garden and how she used to make the best chocolate chip cookies in the neighborhood. We told her about family traditions and inside jokes and the way Dad always fell asleep in his recliner watching the evening news. Emma told us about her life too. She was a third-grade teacher at an elementary school in Seattle. She had been married to David for 8 years, and they had 2 boys. Jacob was 6 and Matthew was 4. She loved hiking, reading mystery novels, and making elaborate Halloween costumes for her kids. She had Dad's green eyes and Mom's dark hair, and she bit her lip when she was nervous, just like I did. "I want to meet you," she said finally. "I want to meet both of you. But I need some time to process this, and I need to talk to David and figure out how to tell the boys." "Of course," I said. "Take all the time you need. But Emma, there's one more thing. Dad left you something in his will. You're entitled to 1/3 of everything: the house, his savings, his life insurance. He wanted to make sure you were taken care of." Emma was quiet for a moment. "I don't care about the money," she said softly. "I just want to know my family." After we hung up, Mike and I sat in Dad's kitchen for a long time, not talking, just processing what had just happened. I kept thinking about the photograph of Mom holding baby Emma and how different our lives might have been if our parents had made a different choice 38 years ago. "Do you think Dad would be proud of us?" Mike asked finally. I looked around the kitchen, at the coffee mug Dad had left in the sink the morning he died, at the calendar on the wall where he had marked his doctor's appointments and Mike's birthday. "I think he would be relieved," I said. "I think he's been waiting for this moment for a very long time." That evening, Emma sent us a photo via text message. It was a picture of her family, her, David, and the 2 boys, standing in front of the Space Needle. She looked exactly like Mom had at that age, with the same kind smile and the same way of tilting her head slightly to the left when she was happy. Jacob and Matthew looked like perfect combinations of their parents, with Emma's dark hair and David's blue eyes. "We're coming to Phoenix next weekend," she texted. "I can't wait to meet you both in person. I can't wait to finally come home." The Phoenix airport was bustling with Friday afternoon travelers, and I found myself checking my phone every few minutes, even though I knew Emma's flight wasn't scheduled to land for another hour. Mike was sitting beside me in the waiting area, drumming his fingers on his knee, a nervous habit he'd had since childhood. "What if this is weird?" he asked for the 10th time. "What if we don't know what to say to each other?" I understood his anxiety, because I felt it too. For the past week, Emma and I had been texting and calling daily, sharing stories and photos, trying to fill in 38 years of missed memories. But there was something different about meeting someone in person, something that couldn't be captured in phone calls or text messages. "It'll be fine," I said, though I wasn't entirely sure I believed it myself. "She's our sister, Mike. It's going to feel right." At 3:15, the arrivals board showed that Emma's flight had landed. I stood up, smoothed my shirt, and checked my appearance in the reflection of a nearby window. I had changed clothes 3 times that morning, finally settling on a blue sundress that Mom had always said brought out my eyes. I wanted to look like family, like someone Emma would be proud to call her sister. 20 minutes later, I saw her walking toward us through the crowd, and my breath caught in my throat. She looked exactly like the grown-up version of the baby in Mom's photograph. The same dark hair, the same green eyes, the same way of carrying herself that reminded me of family pictures I had seen of Mom at that age. Emma was scanning the crowd, looking for us, and when our eyes met, she smiled the biggest smile I had ever seen. It was Dad's smile, the one he got when he was genuinely happy about something. She was holding the hand of a little boy with curly brown hair, Matthew, I assumed, while an older boy with the same features walked beside her. A tall man with kind eyes and graying temples followed behind them, carrying their luggage. "Sarah?" Emma called out, her voice carrying over the noise of the airport. "Emma," I called back, and then we were running toward each other like something out of a movie. When we hugged, it felt like coming home. She smelled like vanilla and something else I couldn't identify, maybe lavender. She was about my height, and when she stepped back to look at me, I could see tears in her eyes. "You look just like Mom," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I have her picture from when she was our age, and you could be twins." Mike joined us then, and Emma hugged him just as tightly. "You have Dad's jaw," she said, laughing through her tears, "and his terrible posture." "Hey now," Mike protested, but he was grinning. "I've been working on that." Emma introduced us to her family. David was warm and friendly, with the kind of easy smile that made you feel like you'd known him for years. He shook our hands and thanked us for reaching out to Emma, saying he had never seen his wife so happy. Jacob, the 6-year-old, was shy at first, hiding behind his mother's leg and peeking out at us with curious eyes. But Matthew, the 4-year-old, was immediately fascinated by Mike, asking him rapid-fire questions about whether he was really a fireman and if he had ever rescued a cat from a tree. "Every week," Mike said solemnly, lifting Matthew up to his shoulders. "It's the most important part of my job." As we walked through the airport toward the parking garage, Emma kept looking back and forth between Mike and me, like she was trying to memorize our faces. "I can't believe you're real," she said. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and this will all have been a dream." "I know exactly what you mean," I said. "I've been feeling the same way all week." We drove to Dad's house in 2 cars, Emma's family and their rental car following Mike and me. I found myself constantly checking the rearview mirror, making sure they were still behind us, afraid that if I lost sight of them, they might disappear. Dad's house looked different somehow with Emma there. It felt fuller, more complete, like it had been waiting for her to come home. She stood in the driveway for a long moment, looking up at the red tile roof and the desert landscaping that Dad had been so proud of. "This is where you grew up," she said softly. "This is where I should have grown up." "You grew up exactly where you were supposed to," I said, taking her hand. "But you're here now, and that's what matters." Inside, Emma moved through the house like she belonged there. She ran her fingers along the mantelpiece where Dad had displayed family photos, pausing at each one. She studied the picture of Mike and me at Christmas, the one from our high school graduations, the one from Mike's wedding 2 years ago. "I should have been in these pictures," she said quietly. "You'll be in all the ones from now on," Mike said, and Emma smiled at him gratefully. In Dad's office, I showed Emma the desk where I had found the key, the drawer where her letter had been hidden for so many years. She sat in Dad's chair and opened the drawer, running her fingers over the wood like she was trying to connect with him somehow. "Tell me about him," she said. "Tell me what he was like as a father." So Mike and I told her everything. We told her about Saturday morning pancakes and how Dad would make different shapes for each of us. Mine were always stars, Mike's were always cars. We told her about the time he drove 6 hours to pick me up from summer camp when I got homesick, and how he taught Mike to drive in the parking lot of the local high school, even though Mike had backed into a light pole on his first try. "He sounds wonderful," Emma said, tears streaming down her face. "I wish I could have known him." "He knew you," I said, pulling out the notebook I had found in the drawer. "He wrote to you all the time. He just never sent the letters." Emma opened the notebook with trembling hands and began to read. The first entry was from when she was 6 months old, right after the adoption had been finalized. Dad had written about how much he missed her, how he hoped she was happy, how he prayed every night that the Johnsons were giving her all the love she deserved. There were entries for every major milestone: her first birthday, her first day of school, her graduation from high school and college. Somehow, Dad had known about all of them. He had written about her wedding, about the birth of her children, about her decision to become a teacher. He had been following her life from a distance, loving her from afar. "How did he know all this?" Emma asked, looking up from the notebook. "The adoption agency," I said. "They sent updates for the first few years, and then Dad hired a private investigator to keep track of you. He never interfered, never tried to contact you directly, but he wanted to make sure you were okay." Emma laughed through her tears. "I hired a private investigator too. We were probably watching each other without knowing it." That evening, we barbecued in Dad's backyard, using his old grill and his secret marinade recipe that he had never shared with anyone. David proved to be excellent with the grill, and Jacob and Matthew ran around the yard, playing with the sprinkler system that Dad had installed when Mike and I were kids. "This feels right," Emma said, watching her boys play in the same yard where Mike and I had played 30 years ago. "This feels like family." "It is family," Mike said, raising his beer bottle in a toast. To Dad for keeping Emma safe in his heart all these years, and to Emma for finding her way home. We sat around Dad's patio table as the sun set over the desert, sharing stories and making plans. Emma wanted to know everything about our childhood, about our parents, about the family she had missed. Mike and I wanted to know about her life in Seattle, about the Johnsons who had raised her, about the woman she had become. "I need to tell you something," Emma said, as we were cleaning up the dinner dishes. "I'm not angry about the adoption. The Johnsons were wonderful parents, and I had a good childhood. I understand why Mom and Dad made the choice they did, but I'm grateful, so grateful, that you found me. We're the grateful ones," I said, hugging her tightly. "We've been incomplete all these years without knowing it." That night, Emma's family stayed in Dad's house. We put Jacob and Matthew in my old bedroom, and Emma and David stayed in the guest room. Before bed, Emma and I sat on the back patio, looking up at the stars and talking about everything and nothing. "I feel like I've been waiting my whole life for this moment," Emma said. "Like I've been carrying around this empty space inside me, and now I finally know what was supposed to fill it." "I know," I said. "I've felt the same way. I want to move here," Emma said suddenly. "I want to move to Phoenix. I want the boys to grow up knowing their aunt and uncle. I want to be part of this family." I looked at her in surprise. "Are you serious? What about your job? What about David's work?" "David's an accountant. He can work anywhere. And there are schools in Phoenix that need teachers. I've already started looking online." She smiled at me. "I've spent 38 years not knowing where I belonged. Now I know." The next morning, we went to the cemetery where our parents were buried. Emma brought flowers, white roses, Mom's favorite. She knelt between their graves and told them about her life, about Jacob and Matthew, about how grateful she was for the life they had given her, even though they couldn't keep her. "I forgive you," she whispered to their headstones. "I understand, and I forgive you." As we left the cemetery, Emma took my hand and Mike's hand, and we walked together toward the car. 3 siblings, finally united, finally whole. "Dad would be so proud," Mike said, and I knew he was right. 3 months later, I stood in the driveway of Dad's house, our house now, watching a moving truck from Seattle unload boxes marked Emma's Kitchen and Boys' Toys. The Phoenix heat was brutal, even for October, but none of us seemed to care. We were too excited, too focused on the miracle of watching our sister finally come home. Emma had kept her promise. She had found a teaching position at an elementary school just 15 minutes from the house, and David had started his own accounting practice with 2 clients he had brought from Seattle. Jacob and Matthew were enrolled in the local school district, and they had been asking daily when they could see their Uncle Mike's fire truck. "Careful with that one," Emma called out to the movers. "It's my grandmother's china." I smiled, remembering that the china she was referring to had actually belonged to our grandmother, Mom's mother, who had died when I was 12. Emma had no way of knowing that, but somehow it felt right that she was the one taking care of it now. Mike came around the corner carrying a box labeled Emma's Books, sweat already beading on his forehead. "How many books does one person need?" he asked, but he was grinning. "Says the man who has every car magazine ever published," Emma shot back, and I laughed at how quickly they had fallen into the easy teasing that comes with sibling relationships. The house had been transformed over the past few months. We had converted Dad's office into a bedroom for Jacob and Matthew, carefully preserving the desk where I had found the key, but adding bunk beds and colorful posters. Emma and David had taken the master bedroom, and I had moved into the guest room. It was an adjustment for all of us, but it felt right. The house felt alive again, filled with the sounds of children playing and adults laughing. "Aunt Sarah!" Matthew came running up to me, his face flushed with excitement. "Uncle Mike said he's going to teach me how to use tools." "Did he now?" I picked up my 4-year-old nephew, marveling at how natural it felt to be his aunt. "And what are you going to build?" "A fort! A big fort in the backyard where Jacob and me can play." Jacob, who was 6 and much more serious than his younger brother, appeared at my elbow. "Matthew, it's Jacob and I, not Jacob and me." "He sounds like his mother," Mike said, ruffling Jacob's hair, always correcting everyone's grammar. Emma appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Over the past few months, she had become the heart of our little family, the one who remembered everyone's favorite foods and made sure we all called each other regularly. She had Mom's nurturing spirit and Dad's determination, and watching her with her boys reminded me so much of Mom that it sometimes took my breath away. "How's the unpacking going?" I asked. "Slowly," she said, but she was smiling. "I keep getting distracted by all the family photos. I found one of Mom pregnant with you, and you looked exactly like I did when I was pregnant with Jacob." These discoveries had become commonplace over the past few months. We kept finding similarities and connections that reinforced just how much we really were family. Emma had Dad's hands, long and elegant, with the same way of gesturing when she talked. She had Mom's laugh, the one that started soft and built until it filled the whole room. She bit her lip when she was nervous, just like I did, and she had Mike's stubborn streak when it came to doing things the right way. "I have something for you," I said, pulling a small wrapped package from my purse. "It's a housewarming gift." Emma wiped her hands on her jeans before taking the package. Inside was a photo album I had been working on for weeks, filled with pictures of our family that spanned from our parents' wedding day to Mike's recent birthday party. I had included photos from Emma's childhood too, copies that David had helped me scan from Emma's collection. "Sarah," Emma said, her voice thick with emotion as she flipped through the pages. "This is beautiful." The last page of the album was a photo we had taken just the week before, all of us gathered around Dad's dining room table for Sunday dinner. Emma was laughing at something Mike had said, David was helping Matthew cut his chicken, and Jacob was telling me about something that had happened at school. It was a picture of a family, complete at last. "Look at this," Emma said, pointing to a photo from 1987. It was a picture of our parents with Mike and me at a family picnic. Mike was about 5, I was 3, and we were all laughing at something off camera. "Now look at this one." The second photo was from the weekend Emma had visited in August. It was Mike, Emma, and me at the same park where the first photo had been taken 35 years later. The resemblance was unmistakable. We were clearly siblings, clearly family. "Dad would have loved this," Mike said, looking over Emma's shoulder at the album. "He did love it," Emma said softly. "He loved us enough to make sure we would find each other eventually." As the afternoon wore on, the house slowly came together. Emma's furniture blended perfectly with the pieces we had kept of Dad's. Her boys' artwork went up on the refrigerator next to Mike's fire department commendations and my teaching certificates. Their family photos joined ours on the mantelpiece, creating a timeline that finally made sense. That evening, we had our first official family dinner in the house. Emma cooked. She had inherited Mom's talent in the kitchen, and we all gathered around the table that had been in Dad's family for 3 generations. David said grace, thanking God for bringing us together and for the family that had been waiting for us to find it. "I want to make a toast," Emma said, raising her glass of wine. "To second chances, to family, and to the Father who loved us enough to make sure we would find each other." "To Dad," Mike and I said in unison, and we all drank. After dinner, while David was giving the boys their baths, Emma and I sat on the back patio where Dad used to drink his morning coffee. The desert sunset was spectacular, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reminded me of the sunsets Dad used to point out when we were kids. "I need to tell you something," Emma said, her voice serious. "I've been thinking about changing my name." I looked at her in surprise. "What do you mean?" "I mean legally. I want to be Emma Mitchell Martinez. I want to carry Dad's name. I want the boys to know they're Mitchells too." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Emma, you don't have to do that. Johnson is the name of the family who raised you, who loved you." "They were wonderful parents," Emma interrupted. "But Mitchell is my birth name. It's who I really am. I've been Emma Johnson for 38 years, and I've been happy. But now, I want to be Emma Mitchell. I want to belong to this family officially." "You already belong," I said, taking her hand. "You've always belonged." "I know," she said, smiling, "but I want it to be official. I want there to be no doubt." 2 weeks later, we all went to the courthouse together to witness Emma's name change. The judge was kind, understanding the unique circumstances of our family reunion. When he signed the papers making Emma officially Emma Mitchell Martinez, Jacob and Matthew cheered, and Mike and I cried. "Welcome to the family," the judge said with a smile, "though it sounds like you've been part of it all along." That evening, we celebrated with a family barbecue in the backyard. Emma had ordered a cake from the local bakery with "Welcome Home Emma Mitchell" written in blue frosting. The boys were fascinated by their mother's new name, practicing saying Emma Mitchell Martinez over and over until they got it right. "Does this mean we're Mitchells too?" Jacob asked, his serious 6-year-old face scrunched up in concentration. "You're Martinez boys," Emma said, ruffling his hair. "But you're also part of the Mitchell family. You have the best of both worlds." "Like superheroes," Matthew declared, which made everyone laugh. As autumn turned to winter, our family settled into new routines. Emma would drop the boys off at school in the morning and then stop by the house to have coffee with me before we both headed to work. Mike came over for dinner every Sunday, bringing his girlfriend Lisa, who the boys had immediately adopted as another aunt. David fit into our family like he had always been there. He helped Mike with projects around the house, shared Dad's love of old movies, and had an endless supply of dad jokes that made the boys groan and laugh at the same time. He told me once that he had never seen Emma as happy as she was in Phoenix, surrounded by the family she had always dreamed of finding. The boys thrived in their new environment. Jacob, who had been shy when they first arrived, blossomed in his new school and made friends quickly. Matthew, who had always been outgoing, became the neighborhood's unofficial entertainment director, organizing games and adventures that usually involved Uncle Mike's fire truck expertise. In December, we celebrated our first Christmas together as a complete family. Emma insisted on making Mom's famous sugar cookies, working from a recipe card she had found in one of Dad's kitchen drawers. The cookies tasted exactly like the ones I remembered from childhood, and when I told Emma that, she smiled and said, "Maybe some things just run in the family." We decorated Dad's tree with ornaments that had been in our family for decades, mixed with new ones that Emma and the boys had brought from Seattle. Jacob and Matthew were fascinated by the handmade ornaments that Mike and I had created as children, and they insisted on making new ones to add to the collection. "This is what Christmas is supposed to feel like," Emma said as we sat around the tree on Christmas Eve, watching the boys play with their new toys, while David and Mike argued good-naturedly about football. "This is what family is supposed to feel like." On Christmas morning, Emma gave Mike and me each a present that made us both cry. She had found a photo restoration service online and had them restore and enlarge the photograph of Mom holding baby Emma. She had made copies for each of us, with frames that had "family" engraved on them. "I want us to always remember that love doesn't have boundaries," she said as we opened our gifts. "I want us to remember that family is forever, even when we're separated by time or distance or circumstances we can't control." As winter turned to spring, I watched Emma transform from a woman who had spent her life wondering where she belonged to someone who was completely at home. She planted a garden in the backyard using seeds from flowers that Mom had grown years ago. She redecorated the house with a perfect blend of old and new, keeping the memories while making room for new ones. The boys grew taller and more confident, their Seattle accents fading as they adopted the rhythms of Arizona speech. They called Mike Uncle Mike and me Aunt Sarah, with the natural ease of children who had never known a time when we weren't part of their lives. In May, on the first anniversary of Dad's death, we all went to the cemetery together. Emma brought flowers from the garden she had planted, and the boys had made cards at school. We stood around Dad's grave, Mom's too, and told them about all the changes in our lives, about how the family was finally complete. "I think he knew," Emma said, kneeling to place the flowers on Dad's headstone. "I think he knew that someday we would all be together. He planned it," Mike said with certainty. "He made sure we would find each other." As we walked back to the car, Matthew slipped his small hand into mine. "Aunt Sarah," he said in his matter-of-fact 4-year-old voice, "are you happy that we came to live with you?" I squeezed his hand gently. "Matthew, having you and Jacob and your mom and dad here is the best thing that has ever happened to me." "Good," he said, satisfied. "Because we're never leaving." "Promise?" I asked. "Promise," he said solemnly, and I believed him. That evening, as we sat on the back patio watching another spectacular desert sunset, Emma turned to me and said, Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Dad had told us about each other sooner? I thought about it for a moment. Sometimes, I said. But then I think about how perfect the timing was. You needed to become the person you are, a teacher, a mother, a woman strong enough to uproot her whole life to be with family. And we needed to become the people we are too. Everything happens for a reason, Emma said softly. Everything happens for a reason, I agreed. As I write this, it's been 2 years since I found that key in Dad's garage. 2 years since I opened the drawer he had locked for 15 years. 2 years since I discovered that our family was bigger and more complicated and more wonderful than I had ever imagined. Emma is now the head of the 3rd grade team at her school, beloved by students and parents alike. David's accounting practice has grown to include a dozen local small businesses. Jacob is 8 and has become an expert on dinosaurs and space exploration. Matthew is 6 and has decided he wants to be a firefighter like Uncle Mike when he grows up. Mike proposed to Lisa 6 months ago, and they're planning a wedding for next spring. Emma is helping with the planning, and the boys are going to be ring bearers. It will be the first Mitchell family wedding where all of us are present. I still live in Dad's house with Emma's family, and I can't imagine living anywhere else. The house that once felt too big and too quiet now feels exactly the right size. Every room holds memories of the family we've built together, the love we've shared, and the future we're creating. Sometimes I still take out the key that started it all, the brass key that Dad had hidden in that old coffee can. I keep it in a special place now, in a frame with the photograph of our first family dinner together. It's a reminder that some secrets are meant to be discovered, that some locks are meant to be opened, and that some families are meant to be reunited. The drawer that Dad locked for 15 years is now filled with new memories. Photos of birthdays and holidays, report cards from Jacob and Matthew, Father's Day cards they made for Uncle Mike, and Mother's Day cards they made for me. It's filled with the evidence of a family that refused to stay broken, a love that refused to stay hidden. Dad's will was just a piece of paper, but his real legacy was the family he kept safe in his heart for 38 years. He couldn't give Emma the childhood she deserved, but he gave her something better. He gave her a family that would never let her go again. Every morning when I wake up in this house, I can hear the sounds of my family starting their day. Emma making coffee in the kitchen, David helping the boys get ready for school, Mike's truck pulling into the driveway for his weekly breakfast visit. These are the sounds of home, the sounds of a family that is finally, completely, perfectly together. The key in the coffee can lead me to more than just a locked drawer. It led me to my sister, to my nephews, to a family I never knew was missing. It led me home. And Dad, wherever you are, I hope you know that your plan worked. We found each other, just like you knew we would. We're together now, and we're never letting go again. The drawer is unlocked now, and it will stay that way forever, just like our family.